Hey, what's going on, guys? This is AndrewChicken, and welcome back to another video. The Paladins Street Style World Tour update is here, and in this video I'm going to be telling you everything you need to know about this brand new update. First of all, as you can see, there is a brand new 3D background, which looks very good. It looks much better than the previous 2D backgrounds that we've had in the game for a very long time now. It's a reversion to the days of old, when, Paladins actually had much more richly decorated and lively backgrounds. And this is a bit of a Halloween theme, as you can tell by the random Halloween decorations scattered around the different places. We got our tombstone in the back there. So that's why it looks a little bit spooky. It's just in time for Halloween, after all. But yeah, let's also talk about the Street Style and World Tour event passes. There are actually 2 event passes in this update. So the first one here is the normal event pass with 2 brand new skins for Tyra and Seris, alongside a whole bunch of other cosmetics. And you can actually preview the cosmetics in the chests now, so they finally sorted out that problem that the chest system had. Click on the skins chest. Uh-oh. Well, they're T-posing a little bit. But yeah, you can see all these skins, so yeah, pretty neat. And if you like Tyra, or you like Seris, which I'm sure are a lot of people because they are some of the most popular characters in the game, then you're going to have a blast with these new skins. This Tyra skin in particular I think looks really, really sick. But then the next event pass here is the original Street Style event pass. It's basically a replica of the Street Style battle pass from all those years ago. So you can see it has Ying, Ash, Maeve, and Sky's original Street Style skins from back in the day. So if you missed your chance to get these throughout the years, when they've come back in various chests or direct purchases, or I don't even know how they are available, then yeah, you can get them from this event pass. And as always, if you already own all the cosmetics in this flashback event pass, then you will be able to get additional crystals from it, if you're like me. So yeah, that's pretty cool. And yeah, real quick before we move on, if you want to buy these new event passes and you want to support the channel directly in the process, then check out my Nexus linked in the description. Here, you can buy crystals and support the channel directly in the process. It's officially affiliated with Evil Mojo, so yeah, you can buy your crystals here. A portion of the proceeds go to keeping the lights on over here at my channel, and yeah, it's as simple as that. You can buy the event pass from there, so really appreciate if you would check it out. Now let's get back to the video. Now let's talk about the different game mode changes. As you can see here, this screen looks a little bit different, and that's because we have arcade mode as the new sort of replacement for Onslaught, Team Deathmatch, Payload, Survival, and King of the Hill. All of these modes are bundled into arcade, and arcade is going to be the official way to play these from here on out. And the reason they've done this change is for a number of reasons. Most importantly, they want to try and improve matchmaking, because when each of these modes are split into different queues, sometimes people only queue for one of those queues, like sometimes people only queue for the Team Deathmatch queue. And when you have all these separate queues, you split up the player base, and then the matchmaking gets worse. So they're trying to congregate everybody into one queue so the matchmaking will improve. And they're also trying to make it so every single game mode can be available at the same time, instead of having to rotate out different game modes every couple of patches. So, if you enjoyed King of the Hill, it's rare that people enjoy that, but if you are one of those people, then yeah, you can play King of the Hill, or Survival, or Team Deathmatch, or Payload, or Onslaught, whatever you want. The only downside is you can't choose which mode you get for every single match. So there's a chance you want to queue Payload and you might end up getting Onslaught instead. But you will eventually get all of these game modes as long as you just keep queuing, and I think it's ultimately for the best. I've advocated for this change before. Wave Defense Public Beta is also back as a permanent queue, and then I suppose Onslaught is here just as a separate standalone queue, which does confuse me because Arcade is supposed to replace Onslaught, but yeah, I guess Onslaught is available too. It is the most popular of the modes within Arcade, so I guess maybe that's why they're doing it. Payload has also received a massive improvement. So as you can see here at the start of the round, we only have 3 minutes to push the payload, and that's because Payload now has checkpoints. So, let me kill these bots real quick and then show you what I mean. So, as you can see, there is a rectangle here on the ground, and when the payload reaches the rectangle... Oh, don't kill me. Hold on. You'll see that our team has reached a checkpoint, and we gain additional time. And so, there is another one of these later on in the map, and this is for every single payload map. The second one is right here. Each of those checkpoints will give you 2 minutes of additional time. So, gone are the days of the 7-minute spawn camp. If the matchmaking happens to be imbalanced, which should happen less times now, or you just happen to have a bad team composition and you're unable to push the payload for, you know, several minutes on end, you now only have 3 minutes to push, and then if you can't do it, you can't do it, and the round ends, which will drastically alleviate the times where, yeah, there's just an imbalance in the teams, and there's a very long spawn camp. This is absolutely fantastic, and it's not the only improvement either to a mode, because Survival is also getting some improvements. It's getting cauterized scaling, it's getting faster pacing in between rounds. In general, it should feel a lot nicer to play now, so very nice improvements to both of these modes. There's also a fantastic change to the map of Dawnforge. Check this out. Dun da da! There's a ramp. And this ramp will allow much easier access to the high ground, especially for champions that don't have mobility. Previously, there was a stack of boxes where you'd have to jump up numerous times just to get up to the high ground. Those days are gone. In place, we have this beautiful ramp. It's a lot brighter over here as well with the addition of this lamppost. In general, this just feels a lot smoother to play on. On top of that, there's a bug fix to Dawnforge and also particularly Warder's Gate. That's going to feel absolutely fantastic. These portals are fixed. What does that mean? Well, now multiple people can go through them at the exact same time, which that issue mostly cropped up when you were playing on Warder's Gate. Your entire team would go around to the portal side at the start of a round, and a bunch of people just get stuck and wouldn't be able to go through the portals. That has been fixed. There are also some other changes regarding map rotations, account XP, and ranked and stuff like that, but they're not really that important. So next, I want to talk about some changes to controller. First of all, if you're someone who enjoys the legacy VGS options and are sad that you can't use them on controller, well, now you can! And yeah, I'm very bad at this, but yeah, you can use all of the different VGS options now. So I can be like, return to base. I don't think that was possible on controller before. Shot in the dark here, it might not have been. So yeah, that is absolutely fantastic. It is a returning option for controller players. So now you have access to the full range of VGS choices, if you so choose, and want to use the more complicated VGS system. Also, controller has some changes to its aim assist, and it seems like I don't have aim assist at all. Uh-oh, is my controller bugged? Okay, so when you log in, your aim assist strength might be set to 0. That's a bit weird. You might want to go back in and retool that. Now it should be working. Yes, there we go. So, in general, aim assist is going to be a little bit weaker this patch. They have reduced the general magnetism by 20%, and they've also done a further reduction in magnetism to champions like Koga, Lex, Talus, Tyra, Viktor, as you can see here, and Vivian. So they really just reduce it on the usual subjects that are ridiculously strong with controller aim assist. But yeah, you can see the additional magnetism if I switch to a champion like Bomb King. Boom, and boom, and boom. So, this guy should now have some magnetism. And it'll just be a little bit easier to hit targets with the bombs. So, yeah, just a general retooling of controller here to try and make it more fair for everyone involved. These projectile champions getting a boost. Some hit scan champions that are ridiculous to fight against are getting slightly nerfed in regards to their strength on controller. Now let's move on to the champion balance. Up first we have Azaan, and you might have heard that he was getting a new talent that was going to replace Eternal this patch. However, that talent was so bad that they decided just not to add it. So instead, Azaan is just getting some base kit buffs. His health has gone up from 4,250 to 4,500, which I am using the health card in this build at level 4, so that's why it's up to 5,100. And then he's also getting 1 second shaved off the cooldown of every single one of his abilities, so the tempo should be a bit nicer on this character now. There's one simple change for Betty LaBomba. Gotta Bounce is getting its movement speed penalty removed, so now it just reduces the cooldown of Explosive Personality by 5 seconds, allowing you to, well, just walk around normally, and then have your superior movement ability, which is pretty great. Bomb King is getting a small change to bring him in line with every other character in the game. He has to follow the rules now. And that change is that he is now affected by cripples. So, if you're trying to use a Poppy Bomb, but you're affected by Grover's Crippling Throw, Inara's Warder's Field with Treacherous Ground, Eevee's Ice Storm, etc., you won't be able to use your Poppy Bomb, which is eminently reasonable because this, especially with Royal Subjects, can turn into one of the most powerful movement abilities in the game, both in terms of its consistency or its potency and how far it sends you. Caspian is getting changes to 2 of his talents, Everywhere at Once and It's Got Some Heft. It's Got Some Heft was going to get a much more drastic rework than this, however, after community outcry they decided not to go with that. Instead, they have restored It's Got Some Heft to its original version, meaning that it now has the additional range. So, this should be a lot stronger now. Everywhere at Once has also been reworked. The cooldown of Deadly Momentum is reduced by 3 seconds now, and this is in contrast to the previous cooldown reduction, which was stronger, but it made it so that the cooldown couldn't be modified by Chronos, cards, abilities, anything like that. So this is much more flexible because it allows you to use it with Chronos and also with one of his powerful cooldown reset cards. It also gains an additional charge, so you're up to 3 charges instead of 2, and you get to heal when you hit an enemy with Deadly Momentum, and that is replacing the previous functionality where you would gain weapon stacks when you hit an enemy. So there are a lot of changes, but as you can see here, we can pair it with the card Flurry now. So if I put that up to level 5, and then head on over here, we can just dash through multiple enemies. Neom, neom. The heal does stack, and, well, this is a lot better movement than Everywhere at Once could previously achieve, because now this is affected by cooldown cards, and this is without Chronos, but I could buy Chronos and I could have that be even stronger. So, yeah, Everywhere at Once is getting a very nice major buff. Cassie is getting a simple but well-needed nerf. The poison on Blast Shot is gone, as you can see here. This is going to hurt her ultimate generation, her ability to see enemies behind walls, and also her ability to get cheeky kills and achieve certain kill thresholds. Corvus is getting a simple but well-needed buff to his ultimate, which is one of the weakest in the game. Entropic Breach no longer just does damage, it also does healing. So put that down and you can see Fernando is getting healed, Corvus himself will also be healed by this, and it heals for basically the same percentage as it does damage to the enemies. So that the same scaling applies to your allies, meaning if they're a tank, they'll get more healing. If they're a squishy champion, they'll get less healing, but regardless, it is now a healing ultimate alongside its damage. Grover is getting some pretty big changes. First of all, his Blossom is getting massively buffed. The passive healing has gone from 70 to 80, that's more of a small change, but the initial burst heal has gone from 500 up to 700, which also drastically improves its scaling with Rejuvenate. With Rejuvenate now, we are able to achieve a Blossom of, wha-bam, 920. That is very chunky. And that is because, well, he's actually getting a nerf to his healing output at the same time, in the form of Rampant Blooming just getting reworked. So there is no more healing on the Vine. Instead, he has a new talent called Wisps of Sylvanas, which causes the passive aura to now provide all allies within it a 15% movement speed boost, and this is permanent. So Grover himself, by picking this talent, will passively move 15% faster for the entire rest of the match, and anyone inside of his radius will also move faster. So this is a potential speed buffing talent that gives him a new form of supporting. And now, as you can see, he has no proper healing talent, so as support Grover, which talent you choose really depends on your playstyle and how you want to support the team. And honestly, I really like that dynamic. Also, he has a slight change to Gentle Breeze, which is his movement speed card on Blossom. This will increase allies' movement speed by a further 25% for 4 seconds after they're healed by Blossom, and this will now affect Grover himself, allowing him to really get some movement speed going. So a very fun new playstyle has opened up for Grover now, and because the Blossom has been buffed up to 700, he should still be a reasonably competent solo support, but also in double support, he is really going to thrive. Lastly, as if he didn't have enough movement speed already, Whirlwind now provides a 25% movement speed amp. So, he's moving faster during that too, and all allies will be affected for 4 seconds. It's basically like having Gentle Breeze on your ultimate. But then you can also stack it with the actual Gentle Breeze on the Blossom, and you can just go insane. Spooky is getting some scary new changes in time for Halloween. She is getting some pretty massive buffs. So, her base movement speed has gone up from 355 to 370, meaning that she'll just walk a little bit faster now. And this will also, of course, scale with items like Nimble. Spirit Traps have a massively reduced reveal distance. What that means is, if you're an enemy, you won't be able to see the trap until you're much closer to it, meaning you have a much harder time destroying them because you won't be able to see them from a distance and just snipe them. On top of that, it'll also deal additional damage from 100 up to 200. Savage Tear is also getting a really big buff this patch. Its bonus damage per stack of curse has gone from 20 to 30%, meaning at level 5, you will get 150% increased damage on Savage Tear. So check this out. Up to 5 stacks, and then wha-bam, 750 bursts. That is pretty scary. And you can stack it with Essence Drain, however that card has been nerfed, and the devs have stated their intentions to eventually phase the card out completely. It's down to 5% as opposed to 10%, so if I put it up to 5 stacks with this card, I'm now up to an 825 burst, which is still pretty respectable, but yeah, not as strong as it previously was. But ultimately, with or without Essence Drain, your Savage Tear is doing more damage now, so that is a very scary buff to this champion. Kinessa is getting 2 changes this update. First of all, Octopressor is gone, and it has been replaced by a Mind talent that actually is a Carbine talent in disguise. Crystalline Battery causes Oppressor Mines to now target you to supercharge you, healing you for 25 every 0.2 seconds, basically turning the damage into healing, and providing 100% increased jump height. Carbine mode will also do 15% more damage while supercharged. So, if I just head over here, you can see, if I throw down a mine, it will no longer target the enemies, but if I get in range of the mine, I now jump a little higher, I gain that healing, and my Carbine is up to 230 damage, as opposed to the normal 200 damage, allowing you to more efficiently kill enemies and dodge and weave a little bit better. On top of that, just a base kit change, her sniper rifle now charges 0.1 seconds faster. So you're able to fire off those shots and clean up enemies a little bit quicker. Koga is getting a sweeping set of changes here that is really going to change the way he's played. So first of all, he's getting a talent rework. You'll notice his most popular talent by far, Adrenaline Junkie, is gone. That's because Adrenaline Junkie has been put into base kit at a slightly lower level. So let me just pick this talent real quick and show you what I mean. If I just use a bit agility, dash a little bit, and then you'll see that I'm passively regenerating stamina at a slightly slower rate, but then I shoot the enemies, and I will regenerate my energy. So, yeah, a weaker version of Adrenaline Junkie in base kit, and the passive regeneration has been lowered to compensate. So he functions a lot more similarly to Sati now, with her pip change they gave her a few months back. On top of that, as you can see, the new talent here, Bullet Time, will cause you to fire and move 15% faster for 2 seconds after using Shadow Step. So I do this, moving slightly faster, shooting slightly faster for 2 seconds, and then the buff expires. So it allows you to burst the enemies a little bit quicker after using a Shadow Step, which can potentially be strong, I guess. And then also Dragon Stance is getting some pretty crazy changes. So the movement speed bonus is gone. And they have also put Swift Hands into base kit, meaning, as you can see in this build here, I have no Swift Hands. I will be able to switch into Claw Stance very quickly. And you'll also notice that the piercing damage has been nerfed. So for each subsequent target you hit, you deal less damage. So, as you can see here, I hit Ying for the full 650, but Viktor only takes 455 damage. And let me regenerate some more energy real quick. As you can see there, if I pierce like that, Viktor only took 260 damage. So, yeah, there is drastically reduced damage on the piercing, but you still gain access to that piercing, meaning very widespread cauterized application, still get a lot of damage, you could still finish off targets, even if they're hiding behind somebody, so it's a very sensible nerf. And the new version of Swift Hands that they have implemented should actually, in my opinion, be renamed to Swift Feet, and that's because they've changed it to give you up to 20% movement speed while in Dragon Stance. So yeah, they took the movement speed out of base kit, but they put a stronger version of it as a card. Lillith is also getting a new suite of buffs, including a talent rework, so let's talk about that first. Cursed Accord has finally been reworked into something that no longer sabotages you in one way or another. This new version of Cursed Accord causes it so that when you block Blood Hex an ally, they will ignore damage reduction up to 10%. And you also heal for an extra 250 whenever a Blood Hexed ally eliminates an enemy. So what this does is basically, if I put the Hex onto Fernando, and then he shoots at Inara with Earthen Guard up, he will take her 30% damage reduction and take it down to 20% damage reduction for the purpose of his own weapon. But as soon as Earthen Guard goes away and she has no more damage reduction, Fernando will not be doing any more damage to Inara than he would normally do. So this is a middle ground between your regular damage and a raw damage amp. Instead, this only applies as a sort of damage amp against targets that specifically have damage reduction. So another example would be Yagharoth in her stationary stance. You would take her damage reduction of 30% down to 20%, but then as soon as she goes into roll form, you wouldn't do any additional damage to her at all. That's how this new armor-piercing buff, as I like to call it, works. So it can be very strong, but very situational, because if the enemies don't have damage reduction, then the talent doesn't serve much of a purpose. But if they have Inara, or Yagharoth, or you anticipate them buying a lot of armor plating, it can definitely come in handy. Maelstrom of Carnage has also received a massive buff, so the blood cost reduction has gone from 25% up to 40%, and the radius has also gone up from 30% to 40%, so both are the same number. And yeah, this talent is just now a lot more effective. You can spam swarms more easily, and the range is just a little bit bigger, and you could potentially stack it with the range card to get a very sizable poison aura. And the duration of swarms has been slightly increased, the blood cost has been slightly decreased, and the blood cost of her leap has also been slightly decreased. So in general, it should now be easier than ever to maintain a healthy supply of blood health, as long as you're constantly hexing enemies or allies, and you also have Rejuvenate. Maeve is getting a buff to her talent, Street Justice. This will now charge your ultimate 20% faster inherently, and then you can stack this with morale boosts and other sources of ultimate generation if you want. But in general now, Street Justice will be building her ultimate faster than her other two talents, which definitely makes sense because it's the ult-centered talent, and without the ultimate, you're literally playing default Maeve. So yeah, just a small but well-needed buff for Street Justice. Maldamba has gotten a very tiny slap on the wrist of a nerf. If you miss Mending Spirits now, the cooldown is slightly longer. Ever so slightly longer, but you still get a lot of recovery, and then you can quickly just reapply it to your teammates. And if you buy Chronos, well, as you can see, the cooldown is practically instant. Nyx is getting a well-needed nerf to the damage output of Royal Presence. So this ability no longer has a lingering DOT. If I pop this and then get in range of the enemies, you see it still does damage to them, according to the percentage of their health, but as soon as I walk away, they are no longer taking damage. So it's just a damage aura now, very similar to Lilith's Swarm, instead of a 6-second long poison. And so this will make her a little bit less oppressive, but you can still run it with a build like this, which has Abyssal Authority and Center of Combat, to gain a lot of consistency and power on this poison. As long as they're still in range, they're going to be taking that damage, but as soon as it expires, the lingering effect is gone. Now let's check out the Octavia Rework, because she is one of the least played damage champions in the game, and the devs are trying to change that. So first of all, she's gotten a new talent to replace Hell or High Water, called Paratrooper. You can now hover for an increased duration, up to 4 seconds, and you also gain 50% increased air control passively the entire match. While in Commanding Leap, you also gain 10% increased weapon damage, so this is a way to buff your raw rifle damage. And this also pairs with a whole bunch of other changes she's gotten. So, Marksman Rifle is now a lot more accurate when you are hip firing, as you can see, which is pretty scary, but also it does fire a little bit slower. In general, the DPS isn't like the craziest thing, but it is still officially, at this point, a competent way to play Octavia up close. Previously, the accuracy was just so bad that this was totally inviable, but this definitely works. So, yeah, they finally fixed that part of Octavia. On top of that, this generally has much less screen shake and recoil. So, scoping in now feels smoother than ever. It almost feels like there's no recoil at all. And this will also pair with the fact that they have put the old version of Hell or High Water into base kit, at least partially. The healing is here, as you can see. However, the infinite ammo is not, but it is still a form of base kit healing for Octavia that will also apply to her teammates. Distortion Field is also getting some changes. The cooldown is being buffed by 2 seconds. And also, they now allow Octavia and her allies to jump way higher when you're inside of the distortion field like that, which is a pretty cool change, and pairs with the air control that Paratrooper gives you. Speaking of Paratrooper, check this out. Boom, go up here, and then we gain all that extra bonus damage, which is very nice. But you do have to remember, when you are up in the air like that, you are a sitting duck for the enemies to shoot, so it's a risk-reward trade-off to get that damage bonus. Octavia also has 2 brand new cards, and these are replacing Clean Shots and Priority Requisition. Got Your 6 will increase the duration of the healing rally you get after using Commanding Leap, and Forward Operating Base will now reduce the effect of crowd control for allies within the distortion field. So, 2 brand new cards for Octavia. Overall, she's feeling a lot smoother to use this update, probably the cleanest she's ever felt in terms of her gameplay, so give her a try, you might actually like her. Ruckus is getting a very well-needed change that a lot of people have been asking for a very long time now, so I'm just going to let it speak for itself. I'm going to pick Flux Generator, and, well, we can go up. Oh yeah, the vertical dash from Aerial Assault has been added into base kit, meaning you can now use this on both Flux Generator and Rocket Barrage, meaning Aerial Assault now has the shortest talent description in the entire game. And honestly, I kinda like it. And Flux Generator has also been nerfed to compensate for this newfound power. The shield granted by emitter has gone down by 500 to a solid 1000. Still a very strong talent now, and now we're gonna have to figure out which of the 2 between Flux Gen and Aerial Assault is his new meta talent. But yeah, very, very powerful new buff for Ruckus. Seris is getting 2 changes to her talents. Internal Torment is getting a new functionality, where now it'll reveal enemies that you Rensoul for the duration of the damage buff. So, it'll let your teammates know, hey, this is the target I need to be shooting. And then also, Forsake has been minorly buffed. Its cooldown has gone to 2.5 seconds, as opposed to the 3-second cooldown that it was before, so you'll have slightly better uptime on the healing with this talent. Strix is getting a few sensible and very nice buffs. Crackshot's pistol no longer has the 40% fire rate penalty that it previously had. So now it's just pinpoint accurate and that's it. Simple as that. Still nothing super impressive. There was no reason for this fire rate penalty in the first place. Now that it's gone, you can see the pistol. Well, it's better than his default pistol, but it's still nothing super crazy. His card Roost has also been massively buffed. Its scaling has been tripled, from 10% per level to 30% per level. So if I just drain a bunch of stealth here, and then you can see the normal regeneration rate of the stealth, and then if I shoot Fernando, you see how much faster that regenerates. So, is it still the version of stealth regeneration that you want to use over just switching to your pistol and using that to regenerate stealth, or possibly also using guerrilla tactics? Well, I'll leave that up to you, but the card is certainly a lot more viable now. And then finally, the most interesting change of them all, Strix is also gaining armor piercing on his weapon. So if you go into stealth and then fire your weapon, that's when you will get the armor piercing. So it's just for that one shot after exiting stealth. It'll ignore 10% of target's damage resistance. And if you need a recap of what that means, then go back and watch the Lillith segment again. Now let's take a look at these 7 changes. So first of all, Overcharged has been replaced. Now it's Execute Article 7, and it brings back the laser eye that he had on launch. Decree 77 will now target the closest enemy with laser lock on, and after 0.8 seconds, your eye will blast them and deal 1,000 damage in a 20-unit radius. The new thing about this talent, though, is that any one hit is executed if below 25% after. So, we can go over here, and let's just fire a burst into Ying. So, if I use this, well, the 1,000 damage actually just straight up killed her. So, let's use it on Viktor, though. Alright, the 1,000 damage actually killed him. So, if I just shoot Ying like twice with automatic mode, now you can see it did 1,000 damage and a further burst of around 380 damage. And if I get Fernando to about half health, you can see it'll execute him there too. It'll do 1,000 damage and then he's left with less than 25% HP after, and so that 25% just evaporates. So you can get a feel for how this talent works. And yeah, if I hit multiple people, boom, You see it executes both of them, but it leaves Fernando with just, you know, taking 1,000 damage and nothing else. So it's a pretty cool buff to this version of the talent, and it should be a lot stronger than it was on release. So yeah, that's very interesting. And then, let's also talk about his base kit changes, because he has quite a few. So Burst Mode is getting increased damage from 150 up to 160. That's pretty spooky. However, the range has been cut down in a number of different factors, resulting in you generally just having much less efficacy at these longer ranges, although still, he certainly has some of the best range in the flank class. The grappling hook has also received some changes, so the strength of the grapple has been normalized, because Terror has been put into base kit. As you can see, this is the new version of Terror. It causes you to gain a shield after using grappling hook. So, this is the new version of the grapple. This is at base kit. This is what you have regardless of your level of Terror. You just get to grapple about that far. It should feel roughly equivalent to around Terror 3, and this is eminently reasonable. It avoids the ridiculously overpowered mobility that Terror 5 gave you, and it also helps his base grapple out, because to be honest, the base grapple without Terror was a little underwhelming, so this is a very nice middle ground. Explosive Dodge also has new functionality. 7 will gain a quarter second of damage immunity when he starts to roll. So it's sort of like a Souls-like dodge. See, I do that, dodge into the Cassie, I take 0 damage from that blast shot, or from that regular shot, because I timed the dodge roll accordingly, so you can use it to dodge big attacks. However, it's not crowd control immunity, so you can still be stunned, crippled, silenced, etc. during your dodge roll. Talus is getting a general accuracy nerf, so his spread is going up, as you can see, meaning it'll be a little bit harder at these longer ranges to consistently hit all of your bullets. This is especially noticeable when using your overcharge, so you're gonna have to be a little bit closer to the enemies now, but if your aim is true, then you should still be mostly fine. Vatu is getting some fantastic changes. Up first, we have Enveloping Shadows getting a rework. This will now reduce the cooldown of your basic abilities by 3% for each kunai that hits an enemy. Previously, it reduced it by 10% as long as at least one kunai hit an enemy, but it had an internal cooldown, so this is a bit more fluid. So if I throw the Shadow Bombs, and then hit Ying with just one kunai, you see I don't get that much cooldown reduction, but then I get closer, hit 2 kunai, I get a little bit more. And then, if I throw them again and hit Fernando with all 3, big cooldown reduction. So it incentivizes you to get up close and hit all your shots. It rewards your accuracy. Very solid change, very fair change. On top of that, as you can see, the damage has gone down back to the pre-weapon buff levels. So, yeah, that ridiculously overpowered burst is gone. And also, he has a reload animation cancel. So previously, if you would try to press reload and then dash like this, it would cancel your reload and you have to do the reload all over again. But now, as long as you're about 60% of the way through, it'll auto-complete the reload, which makes him feel buttery smooth. Lastly, a nerf. His dash no longer has damage reduction. So if I enter third-person mode here, you can see there is no DR indicator. And remember, the DR indicator looks like this. That orange shield, that is just not there when you dash now. So a little bit less survivability, but to be honest, you're probably not going to feel it that much. Next up, a change to burst mode. So when you're hip firing, you have generally less recoil, although still a lot of recoil. Oh boy. And you also have much improved accuracy on hip fire as well. Small change to burst mode. Still feels kind of jarring. Probably still want to scope in for that. And then Vivian also has a change kind of in a similar vein. When you are using precision sights, you no longer have camera shake. So here's the normal camera shake with your regular weapon, and then scope in. No more camera shake, you just have the recoil, but the camera shake is completely gone. And if you want to be really funny, by the way, then switch into a laser gun build with eyes on the prize, and this is just so funny to me. This is just... It's a little goofy, so you can do that now if you want. Vora is getting a huge shakeup, so Double Tendril has gone into base kit. I can now pick Unyielding Pressure and have 2 tendrils, which also, by the way, is kind of eerie how similar the tendril and the grapple from 7 feel now. But anyways, yeah, Double Tendril in base kit now. And she now has 2 new talents. Parasitic Pull is replacing the original Double Tendril talent, and it causes Tendril to now target allies, and on attaching to them, provides them double your Tendril card effects. So, with the shield card at level 4, you see I gain a 300 shield for 5 seconds after activating Tendril, and if I Tendril to Fernando, that shield is actually much bigger. As a matter of fact, it's 2 times bigger. So, yeah, a pretty powerful effect if you want to be a sort of support Vora. And while it's most easily visualized with Otherworldly Tether giving a shield, it'll be much more powerful with what may come. Because if you put that up to level 5, it's 20% damage reduction. But then if you use it on an ally, they get 40% damage reduction for 3 seconds after activating Tendril. Just want to, point that out. On top of that, it also will allow you to hit enemies with the Tendril and deal 225 damage over 1.25 seconds. So, a little bit of extra DOT, not really that much, not going to affect you in too many circumstances, but it is there. This is mostly going to be for latching to your teammates, stealing their mobility if they're playing someone like Drogoz, and giving them some buffs at the same time. Then, after that, we have Eclipse Affection. Reduce Obliteration's cooldown by 2 seconds, and then reduce it by a further 50% if you earn an elimination. When used at max darkness stacks, you'll also deal 100% more damage. So this is very similar to Rogue's Gambit, but for Vora. So head on over here, obliterate with max darkness stacks, 1000 bursts, kill Ying, and boom, I already have my next obliterate. Kill Viktor, 5-second cooldown on the obliterate there, and then I can, 1000 damage, kill Fernando. You get the general gist. So a very powerful talent for Vora here, just coming in out of the blue, automatically so much better than Deafening Silence. Lastly, Willo is getting 2 nerfs. So Blast Flower is getting a pretty huge nerf. The maximum stacks has gone down to 3 from 4, meaning your maximum damage is much weaker now. Shoot at Fernando, and the max stack is 725, so we're missing about 75 damage per shot. This mostly affects the speed at which she can kill tanks, because as you can see there against Viktor, as soon as I hit 3 stacks, he's actually just dead. See? Like that? So you're mostly going to be fine versus champions like Androxus, Leon, Shalin, etc., as long as your aim is true. However, if you're fighting a tank, like Rom, your pressure against him is going to be reduced by a pretty reasonable margin. Also, her passive is now called Pixie Dust, it officially has a name, and it now, after 4 seconds of use, increases your fall speed reduction from 90% down to 75%. So, this mostly affects you when you're using your ult, and then as soon as your ult ends, for the first 4 seconds, falling slowly, but then as you can see now, after 4 seconds, I fall to the ground a lot faster. So this is a change that affects that interaction. Most of the time, if you just flutter and then float like this, you're not going to notice this change. So yeah, mostly an ult plus passive synergy that's been nerfed here. But yeah, that is it for the Paladins Street Style World Tour update. Let me know what you think about this update in the comment section down below. There were a lot of amazing balance changes, some cool new skins, and of course a lot of great game mode changes as well. So I would love to hear your thoughts about that. Also make sure to drop a like on the video if you found it to be helpful and enjoyed it. Lastly, if you want to support the channel directly, again, please check out the Nexus, nexus.gg/AndrewChicken. Here you can buy crystals, and you can support the channel directly in the process. So if you're looking to buy the new event pass, this is the place to do it. It's officially affiliated with Evil Mojo, so it's the real deal, and I'd really appreciate your support. But with all that being said, thank you guys for watching. I will see you all next time. Peace out.